Yo, let's do this. Crowdfunding this week. Plenty of new games, a little bit of everything. I'll tell you right now, the flow of some of these games, the complexity of some of these games, the rules overhead of some of these games, along with the bling that's going along with it, this is going to be an interesting week. News video. Monday, Sunday. A couple big things. Also, side note here. Tell me in the comment section down below. Hit the 3 if you're watching this part. Would you like to see me do a weekly news video? Weekly news video, short snippets, or you prefer me to bunch it up, you know, so like it's maybe once, maybe twice a month, or it's a little bit longer. Let me know what you think. Anyway, that's all I got. Thank you guys, though. You guys are, you know, watching it and it's doing great, and I just want to say thank you, you know. Thanks. Let's do this. First up, I mean, I covered it on my video review. Thank you guys for watching that one as well. I mean, that one hit 1,000 views for a review. Between that and War of the Ring, the card game, you guys have been really supporting me and some of those reviews. And so, again, just thank you very much. I stand by what I said in that video. All aboard the hype train, right? No, this is a really fantastic game from Off the Page Games. I'll put that out there. This is probably the best pre-production, anything that has not hit wide retail from Kickstarter or crowdfunding that I have played in all of 2022, without a doubt. So I'll put that right out there as a mainly 2-player asymmetric faction-based game where you're going back and forth and getting to play 3 actions-ish. If you watch my video, 3 actions-ish every round of 4 possible actions. Now, you have the same basic 4 actions, but how each of the 3 various factions that you can play as, well, potentially 4, but 3 main factions, how they take those actions are completely different. It's funny because apparently a bunch of us had the similar vibe, because a couple of the other videos actually do the same thing that I did, was, you know, compare it a little bit to Root. At least I saw that on the titles. And that's what I was really thinking, as, you know, this is a nicer, less complex overhead-wise Root asymmetric faction-ish, right? I mean, that's the big problem with a game like Vast, a game like Root, a game like Oath, even, where maybe not Oath, no, not Oath, but those games where you have to know yours really well, but you have to know other people's really well too. And this just makes it where you just kind of got to know one other one. And I didn't play it at 3 players, so I can't speak to that. That adds a whole different of the 4th potential faction-ish element. And yeah, this is what you need to know on this game. It's a great game. It's really good. But if you don't like asymmetric, you know, it's not really skirmish, it's not really area control, area manipulation, a slight engine build, variable actions that you're going to be taking optimization wise, very tactical, much less strategic. The other game that I talked about on the channel earlier in the week, if you missed that video, that one wasn't as popular, but Token Terrors, that was freaking strategic as all get out. And you're taking relatively a grand scheme of things similar approach to gain points, because all it is a race to 7 points. You're really just trying to get them as fast as you can. It's a race. It really is a race. The most divisive thing I'll say right now as well is the cube tower. Do you like the cube tower? I felt mixed about it originally, but with the stuff flowing as freely as it did in our games, I really felt as though, you know, yeah, if it empties out too fast, well, that's great, because the real limiting factor there is that you put all of them in every time, and if you can't strengthen, well, then you may be taking a battle that's going to be lost, especially if your opponents didn't come out last time and you won the last battle and all of theirs are just sitting in there and you're just going to knock them loose, right? You know, again, I would probably say this is best as 2-player. This is best 2-player without a doubt. Retail edition, the Protectors, the Family, and then you have the Kami, which is, you know, various goblins down here, and then you have Hester, which is a whole nother, that's the 4th one that you really only play with the 3rd player playing in. So yeah, wooden pieces, deluxeifications here galore, and it's very similar in that sense to Mind Management. I think a lot of people are going to really like this when they get it. So yeah, I didn't see this. I didn't see this 4-player count. I didn't know anything about this. So the Fairfolk expansion inside the box. Okay. It comes to 3 player boards that I had access to. Everything else here, Satchel Edition, add-ons that you can see, Pledge with a Pal. That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool, actually. I haven't seen that before. So, stretch goals. So, yeah. Protectors. And then you go down to the how to play. And relatively easy-ish. The first game, there's a little bit of a learning curve, but after the first game, you know, it layers it on over like a course of 3 to 4 scenarios where you're adding an element each time, and that's really where it really stands itself out better than Root, because you just can't do Root all in one digestion. So yeah, there you go. You can see everybody's videos down here as it runs through how to play and previews and how to plays and previews. Mine's down here eventually, and so, you know, just it's solid. If you're looking for a great game, if this is your type of game, this is really going to appeal to you. If it's not your type of game, I mean, just like I say with other games, right? Like there's certain games and types, like if you're not a worker placement, if you're not a heavy board game worker placement, like you just don't go for Lacerdas, right? Like I don't go for Lacerdas as cool as they look, as good as, you know, On Mars or Kanban is, you know, right? Like if you don't like that type of game, it's not going to change your opinion. And so if you don't like this type of game, it's not going to appeal to you. But if you're looking for something that was like, oh, Root, I don't want to buy 3 expansions to be able to play it with 2 players because it's only me and my wife, right? And so this is going to be more accessible, easier to play, and it's going to offer you probably a better value in that sense. The only question is whether or not you try and pick it up at retail if you wait, like Mind Management, or do you go with the deluxeifications? Because, you know, as I scroll past the deluxeifications, it's not inexpensive. And this is probably the other lesson this week, is a lot of this stuff is really expensive. It's $100. It's $100 though, which is weird because $100 is actually a lot less than some of the other stuff we'll talk about, or actually comparable. So take that for what you will. Weird that there's an early bird here because it doesn't look, as far as I can tell, to be any different than the other deluxeification. I don't know. Anyway, it's a great game. Take it for what it is. You know me, I don't hype stuff unless I really like it. So there you go, Harrow County. The game of gothic proportions. No, the game of gothic conflict. So take that for what you will. Next up, and we're going very different, I don't want to say gimmickly this week, but all of these have like a different gimmick that they're sort of playing off of. And how do you feel about gimmicks in games, right? We've seen a lot this year, like the globe-trotting one from the makers of Canvas, you know, as the circular globe sort of thing. Like, is it worth it? Are gimmicks good in something? I'm going to argue, yes, gimmicks are good in a lot of cases. Not necessarily for the wallet or the price point, but sometimes for innovation, you know, breeding, that sense. Anyway, the Stifling Dark, a horror board game. This is a very interesting take on sort of the horror genre, because we've seen a couple other horror genre games recently, right? Level 99 just did Dead by Daylight. And so this is very similar in the sense it's a 1 versus all game. And what you have is you have basically a numbered board of like 100 something spots, and you're using your number of actions on a turn to go across this board. And if you're on the survivor side, well, it's just survive. If you're on the adversary, the one side, you're trying to potentially, you know, kill one of them at least. And there are different adversaries that you're going to take on. And so there's going to be different objectives that they have to win. There's going to be ways of revealing themselves, or even unrevealing, as it says, you know, hiding again, essentially, if you like that term. I like unrevealing. I am unrevealing my, anyway. So basically, what happens here is you have the flashlight, and you can play the flashlight on your turn, and it covers a certain amount of area. And if it covers a complete circle, not a partial circle, complete circle, anything that's in that circle is revealed. Also, if an area is completely black, it takes you extra movement to go into. So by laying the flashlight down, or laying the flashlight down for a friend, you can move into certain areas a lot easier than if you can't. So that's kind of what you get to see. Asymmetric investigators, there's asymmetric adversaries here. You can see a little bit of what they've got there. And then they kind of go through the turn. Okay, they've each got their strengths, their weaknesses. You can sprint, and that takes your stamina. And each time you put out the flashlight, you use a charge. And so if you don't have any stamina and you don't have any flashlight, well, you can't use those, but you recharge them at the end of every turn. So you don't like have to go around and pick up batteries, right? Or go around and eat up food. But there's going to be items that are going to help you. There are going to be things that are going to get in your way, hazards. There are going to be things that are going to affect the nemesis, essentially, to either cause him to have noise, or cause him to reveal himself, or even if your flashlight lays down, or some of the powers. For example, one of the powers of the investigators is, hey, pick 2 spots on the board, and if they go adjacent or on these spots, they are automatically revealed. So things like that are going to provide a little bit of a dynamic. And it's interesting because I wonder how this was obtained. I mean, playtesting, right? You play this game for 17 rounds, not 18, not 16, shame on you, 17. and you're finding evidence and you're trying to get out. So there you go. Adversaries get activated, they move around, and they're moving around on their own private board until they get revealed or until they sort of have to reveal themselves in some way, shape, or form on the main board. $70 for a deluxe level here with the expansion and sleeves. I don't really like sleeves being included. I'd rather pay $5 or $10 less for no sleeves, but take that for what you will. If you want to get Investigator's artwork modeled after you, you can pay $750 as well. Also, newsletter. If you want to get on the newsletter, you'll get a free extra mini expansion that will only be, it's not available during the campaign currently, but afterwards, if you're not one of their mailing list subscribers, then you're going to have to pay for it if you want it. So extra though, if you want to buy an extra, it's actually less. That's interesting. I haven't seen that too much. But that's the gist of the game here. They run through all the tokens. I mean, it's not like the most aesthetically like beautiful game, but who cares if the gameplay holds up, right? I mean, I don't. I look at Spirit Island, speaking of things. I meant to have that review out this week. I bought Horizons of Spirit Island, so just so you know. So I'm going to try to have that review out the beginning of the next week. But I wanted to redo the format and make it a little bit different for you guys. So I had to put it on hold, scrap it, and kind of basically almost redo the video. Anyway, side note there, side tangent, as we talk about Spirit Incarnate coming up. Anyway, I'm getting stretch goals. You're getting a bunch of extra stuff, you know, stretch goals, previews, playthroughs, shipping, whatever. Okay, there you go. That's everything you need to know. This is a unique game. This is kind of cool. But do you play one versus all games? And just like I mentioned with the asymmetric factions, I mean, essentially this is the same thing, right? Asymmetric sides. So it's just got a horror theme instead. So take that before you will, but that's it. Now we have Redwood, another unique, gimmicky sort of panorama creating, forest exploring, photographing game. This is doing really well. This is $68,000, and this is a beautiful game. This is an absolutely fantastic, beautifully looking game, but it reminds me of Wild Serengeti. You know, is it too pretty? And is the gameplay going to hold up? Because I don't really get the best sense with a lot of these games this week of what the game flow is actually going to look like. And if you read the rule books on a lot of these campaigns, which I always suggest you do if you're going to back any of these campaigns, you may have to be watching more videos this week or leaning a little bit into that side of things than if you haven't in the past. And I say that as someone who has tried to read or read all of these rule books this week, as always for you guys. So the gist of this game is you're going to be sort of moving around this circular board, sort of kind of like the flashlight from before. You have this little arc that you're going to be utilizing to find a certain number of tokens within that arc that can then be translated to your panorama picture. Then you're taking your picture of your panorama, putting a tile next to the tile that's already down there, and trying to match the edges as well, because it's sort of a set collection bonus style game in terms of how many animals you can get in your diorama, how many different things you can get there, your objectives that are going to be laid out individually each round, or even as you go around the board sequentially, because as you go, well, then the next person has to, you know, move past where you were, and so it just kind of goes around. I'll say though, the rulebook, I really don't like the rulebook in the sense that they use these symbols all over the place to try and make the explanation of like the little arc thing and the little fan thing, and so it kind of actually makes it more confusing and more convoluted than helpful. I know what they were going for, but it is what it is at the same time too. Sometimes words are better than images when you're defining stuff. You have some Kickstarter exclusive upgrade components here. There's going to be an expansion that has a Puma as well. You've got a little bit of everything in terms of deluxeifications for the stretch goals and for the upgrades. The sleeves here with the expansion that I mentioned. And then they have this other pledge level that I have kind of mixed feelings about as well too. And I'll show you why here in a second. Yeah, you can upgrade everything for wooden tokens. It's going to cost you another 35 euros. That's a lot of money for wooden tokens. I mean, like, if I love a game, I will get it later, but I have a hard time biting the bullet. I got bit, speaking of things, right? Going back and forth there. I got bit by, what was it? It was the combination dice worker placement battler game. I'm blanking on it, but it had wooden deluxeifications, and there was a 5th player one, and it turned out to be kind of mediocre. And I had the wooden, and so like, if it turns out not to be great, like, people aren't going to pay what you paid to get the wooden tokens for a game that they aren't, you know, super excited about. So it's always a risky investment from that sense. But here's what I was talking about, the big box all in. So if you want to get the all in, if you want to have a box that actually stores everything all in one, you're going to have to get a whole separate price point and a whole separate pledge level. I really don't like that. You're pledge locking a box that actually holds everything. That just doesn't sit with me very well. I know, and you've got extra upgrades here too, and you know what, it is what it is. Anyway, the pricing is all there, but I mean, you're talking 140 euros for this game. 140 euros. That's insane for a non-miniature game, right? Like deluxeifications, like I said at the beginning of the video, price points are going up across the board. It doesn't look bad at all. I mean, I think it looks like a really interesting game, but this is a try before I buy for me. Now they have competitive, they have solo, they have cooperative, and so they have a couple different modes, and you can see like you're going to be taking that little panorama thing and moving across here and using the little arc to tell where you're going and what you're getting. But that just goes into what I said. Here's the expansion with the Puma. You replace some of the other animals as well, and you also get an asymmetric one-time use ability. So it's an absolutely gorgeous looking game. It's just, I can see myself being very hit or miss on this as well. A few exclusives, a few stretch goals. Yeah, how do you want to spend your deluxeification money? That's basically what we're turning into on crowdfunding nowadays. Which game do you want? Because you're not going to be able to buy two anymore. You're going to have to buy one with the deluxeifications because it's going to run your budget significantly. So anyway, I think this looks solid, but for that much money, I'm okay with sometimes less is more. More is more, also less is more. So Redwood, very interesting. We'll see where it goes from sit down. So there you go. Speaking of deluxeifications, price points, and things that will surprise you, we have Save the President. This is actually Patriot. It's a 1 to 6 player social deduction game, sort of Hong Kong, Murder in Hong Kong meets Blood on the Clock Tower, right? That's kind of what we've got going on here. This has probably the biggest, most complex rulebook I've ever seen for a social deduction game, period. The concept is relatively straightforward. It's almost funded. It's almost at its $30,000 goal. But here you go. The early bird is going to cost you $100 US. I mean, you're talking Blood on the Clock Tower price point. And what you're doing here is from 3 to 6 players. And really, I'd argue that I don't know if I'd play this with less than 4, even though they've got some modifications and tweaks. And the 1 to 2 player is more of a campaign where you're going up against the AI system of the game itself. You're dealing out role cards, allegiance cards first. And so one person becomes the president and everyone else becomes player, if you will. And you either have to assassinate the president as the one assassin, I think, in most of the lower player counts, or save the president in all of the other ones. But it's, you know, obviously hidden allegiance. And then halfway through the game, you can get a different allegiance card and potentially change your hidden allegiance. So after you get your allegiance card, then you get your character, which have asymmetric powers, asymmetric strengths, abilities, weaknesses, all of that stuff. And you're going to be going through and you're going to be, let's see if I can find a picture of the board here. The board has like these 4 categories of which you are going to be moving your worker from, and each of those places that you move your worker from, because it's miniatures, that's also why the price point is a little higher, you are taking one of like multiple actions that are potentially at that are all going to be different in terms of how many action points they have, because starting the game, your character may have around 8 action points, and you choose how to spend those action points on your turn. Then you have a briefing that you either have to essentially do a Dead of Winter-esque throw in cards to see if you can get enough influence to pass the briefing. If you don't, there's a penalty. And then there's also a letter each round, because this is played over 5 rounds, that the president reads, and you either pass or fail that as well. Does that sound straightforward? Well, then it really lays into a 30-page rule book of how these actions break down and what you're going to be doing at all of these places. You're going to be having riots. You're going to be having threat levels. You're going to be having science upgrades. You're going to be having science technological upgrades that could be positive, but you can also pull a negative one. And so there's a lot of stuff going on. Beacons that are going to be one-time use per turn that are going to be helpful. Do you do taxes? You're going to raise taxes in a social deduction game where you're trying to save the anyway, I mean, it's just that wide reaching, and I fear that it's almost too wide reaching. That's what I get the feeling of with this, right? Like, and 6 players for a social deduction game seems like a little bit of low of a player count. Like when I think social deduction game, when I mention Murder in Hong Kong, when I mention Blood in the Clock Tower, right? People play those games. Like I like to play Murder in Hong Kong with like 4 people bare minimum. More like 6 or 7 is more ideal, like in that range. Blood in the Clock Tower, people like are playing, they want to play with like 10, 15, 20. So it's interesting that player count is a little bit lower with this one. I know why it is, given the dynamics of the actions themselves, but it just makes me go, okay, this is a very niche game where I think you're really going to be looking at really the 5 to 6 player count as the ideal scenario. And do you have 5 to 6 players that you can play repeatedly with this? Because again, it's a social deduction game where the meta becomes more important, and it's going to take you 30 minutes per play for a social deduction game. So it's going to take a lot longer than, say, Murder in Hong Kong, where you can play 4 times in half an hour, right? Miniatures, cards, exclusives, you get a little extra president. I mean, there's like 3 different presidents you choose from, because the presidents have asymmetric abilities, and the assassins are all going to be slightly different, and how you're going to be going back and forth, upgrades, deluxifications, there you go. But I mean, that's what this game is. How do you feel about that? Does that intrigue you? Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting concept, but it's also going to be heavily group dependent. And so that's where I'd be a little cautious, especially if you don't have that exact player count on a routine basis, because I know that I have trouble with that. But anyway, that's Patriot, social deduction game. There you go. We're sinking. We're sinking! Basically, you're pirates, and you're on a boat, and you're looting and polluting. No, you're not polluting. You're looting. Those just rhyme, so I went with it. You're looting, and you're trying to also prevent your ship from getting sunk as you fight off enemy pirates. And so what you're going to be doing is you're going to be secretly bluffing, as well as the old pirate habit known as lying, potentially, depending on what action you want to take on a turn. And so you have this little action dial, as you can see right here on the board, and you have 4 different columns of actions that you're going to be potentially taking. You're going to be like either bailing water, you're going to be patching it up, you're going to be firing, or you're going to be like looting. And so you have like 4 different things you can do, but you all place your little dial on which one you want, and then you put it whatever column you want. Now, the thing is, well, you don't have to place it in the column that matches up with the actual action you're taking. So you can lie to other people, because there's 2 win conditions or end game conditions in this game. One is that you defeat the enemy, and then the person with the most treasure cards or treasure points wins. So you're going to want to be looting. But if the ship sinks completely, then the person with the least amount of cards wins, because they're the lightest and they can hop into the lifeboat. No, that's actually what the rulebook says. So that's what you've got going on here. But the bluffing and the lying part comes in, that if you put yours in the wrong column to deceive people about what you're doing, well, then you are also then in a specific order and column. You go back further in the order, which may or may not benefit you or be a detriment, depending on what that action is, because it's going to allow you to gain cards, lose cards, repair, do a certain number. Because if you're in a certain position in the line, you may actually get an extra benefit, like if you're the first or last person to go. So that changes the dynamic of how the game actually happens. There's the little dial I mentioned. You got 4 enemies that you're going against, and you're getting damaged each turn, getting water flooding, and discussing how you want to play, lying at the same time, using your items, playing cards, drawing, and rinsing and repeating. So little ship miniature there, $50 is going to be the price point to get this in. 4 legendary enemies, 6 playable characters. Is there an expansion with this one too? I feel like there is, but let's go scroll down here. Yep, mini expansion here, Navy and Ghosts. And you can get a sleeve. Sleeves are coming back into style here. Not this type of sleeve. My brother-in-law has a sleeve. Actually, he has 2 sleeves. Both my brother-in-laws have. Anyway, I have no tattoos, in case you were wondering. Anyway, that's a whole nother issue. Videos, social links, the rulebook is there. But this is a lighter style, bluffing, lying pirate game. So speaking of that, I need to get my review out for Lying Pirates, and I apologize to the Lying Pirates people, because I wasn't able to get it out before their campaign finished, but it will be coming out in the near future as well. So, I'll put that in here in the middle of this video. Life, I'm sorry. I was really hoping to get that one out sooner too, so I owe them a true apology, because I wasn't able to do that. But it's neither here nor there. It'll be coming out in the near future, in case you were wondering about that game. Careless. I'm going to mention this one because it's a solo game for $20 US, and you're rearranging or reordering these cards basically in order of chore or care. And I'm not really sure what the timing thing is, because all it says is you kind of rearrange them between certain hours, and the time tracker keeps track of your turns, but I'm not really getting a good gist of the flow, because they just kind of give you an example like, oh, well, you reorder these, or you move over to the coffee token, but watch out, the cat's trying to knock over your coffee. No, that's seriously what it says. The cat's trying to knock over your coffee and you lose time. That's it. That's the game. That's all the explanation that's really on the board. Some stretch goals, some other games that they have here, and just some shipping. So I'll mention it because Jason Anarchy has a big following, and his other games have done relatively well as well. So it's at 300% of its funding already. So take that for what you will, but that's Careless. Now, Frozen Frontier. This is probably a little bit of another denser rulebook. This, Patriot, Redwood, all very dense rule books this week. So buyer beware, backer beware, I guess, from that standpoint. $24,000 out of $40,000, which isn't bad at all. But it's also not knocking it out of the park like I'm guessing that Cosmodrome was hoping for as well. I mean, this is a Euro-style worker placement strategy, sort of engine building, city hopping game that you are doing as you're taking these actions and you're going across these various cities to build, produce, and even manufacture over a series of 3 rounds. And as you go through the rounds, you're going to be having shipments. You're going to have to do required shipments. You're going to have unplanned shipments. How you're going to manage not only the resources that you need to have to build, but how you have to manage the resources that you're going to even have to pay off these shipments with that the home planet is asking about in the first place. So you can see the board here, and each of these circles represents a city that you're going to be hopping. There are like several big areas, like a set of like 4 that represent one big city, and then like the individual areas in the city, I think something like that, or like, yeah, it's divided into several, and even the small cities themselves have 4 quadrants in which you're going to be maneuvering around as well. It's got sort of a little bit of Valor and Villainy vibe, where if you actually go over the side, you don't have to go orthogonally, like to go and move between places. You can actually like loop around this side to this side, or like this side to this side. I forget what it is, but that's essentially what you're doing. Economic area control aspect as well, because as you go into those cities, you're going to be building your presence, and you're going to be getting bonus points based on that in addition. So $85 is the base game. That's, again, not an inexpensive base game for all of what you're seeing here. And the deluxeification with an expansion is going to cost you $125. So I wasn't kidding about these prices being a little bit higher overall this week. And it gives you sort of the brief GIF overview that we're seeing a lot more of. Construct, settle, collaborate, raising your funds. Those are the like 3 or 4 actions you're going to be taking on a turn-by-turn basis, because you get like one major action, and then you get sort of your minor actions as well. And it kind of runs through all of those. But if you really want to get a good sense of things, again, I think you're going to have to probably watch the Learn While Playing from John Gets Games here. Because I read the rule book and I understood some of the actions, but I didn't get a good sense of the flow, especially over a 3-round game, which sounds kind of shorter, but take that for what you will. A bunch of reveals, a bunch of stretch goals here you can check out. They've got the Kickstarter exclusive label on a bunch of these, so take it for what it is. A few upgrade packs that are going to be included, and a few videos here from the usual folks as well. So this one's going to be an interesting test. Where is it going to go? We see a lot of deluxe Euro style games nowadays. And my fear, and the reason I bring this up on multiple campaigns, is there's only so much money to go around. There's only so many big projects that you can back. There's only so many triple-digit price points that your wallet can afford. I don't care who you are. Yeah. So take that for what you will. But this is Frozen Frontier, and we'll see how they do. I mean, they're, 60% funded over. So we'll see how it goes in the next couple days, or 2 weeks. There you go. Next up, we have 911 Operator board game, which is about 50% funded here. This is basically kind of a weird theme and corporation, right? Like you are basically a 911 operator, and you are competitively, right, going up against other operators to try and send your units of bicycles, cars, trucks, and helicopters to these incidents with various powers that they can use to solve the incidents in the first place, over 3 sets of decks of increasing difficulty and increasing trouble that they're going to cause, while still managing cooperatively the public tension that's going to be going on, because as these incidents obviously increase and stay out there, then the tension from the public rises, and if the public tension gets too high, then everybody loses. And so otherwise, it's just who has the most reputation at the end. You're going to be gathering these chips up based on how you resolve these incidences. Sometimes if you're the first one, if you're the last one that gets it all done, if you're just various ways that you're going to be getting bonuses that go along with these incidences based on the way that the incidences are comparatively. The higher the incidence level, the more reputation you're obviously going to get. Going across the board, it's semi-cooperative, like I said, locating them, dispatching them, solving them, getting these chips, and sort of having a little bit of upgrade and recruitment, because you can only have 4 units total that are all going to be slightly different, because like the helicopters are really fast, they can go anywhere on the board in one move, but they can't hold any of the chips. So that's going to affect your reputation. You can put fires out essentially, but you're not going to be getting the full bonus, but you may be able to get there before your opponents. So that's kind of the nutshell version of what you're doing here. You have all these different incidents cards that you're going to be going across, and it's a relatively cheap price point. Early bird is 29 euros, and the regular here is 39. So that's a bigger difference than I would have expected. Get it on PC and Steam, though, if you want as well, for an extra $100. Whew. With some other stuff there, some deluxeification, some map, and stickers. So it's an interesting concept. I really don't have an appeal from like the pick up and deliver sort of aspect of a lot of games, and this isn't that, but this just never really sits my fancy, if you will. It's just not me. It's a different theme though, and I'd like to see the theme incorporated differently, but I guess when I was looking at this game originally, I thought it was going to be more cooperative, not competitive. So anyway, it's almost 50% funded, so check it out, and if it's for you, give it a look-see. Next up, we have Mafia World Game. So this is basically an expanded Mafia game. They've got $3,000 of their $5,000 goal. They're incorporating an app. They're incorporating like 20 different types of gangsters, as well as like 50 some different items, power-ups that you can use instead of just yelling across the table at each other in the typical Mafia game that we are all familiar with, that you can play. So there's going to be an app that's going to be integratable, and that you're going to be scanning and using digitally. Like, that's real life. No, just kidding. But that's sort of what they've got going on here. Speaking of deduction things, VIP masks, even if you want. Ooh, look at that. That's fancy. BDS. Anyway, early bird there. Price point, the app. Oh, subscription. Ooh, 1 month premium app, unlimited access. Oh, you're going to make me pay a subscription. Anyway, it's got some stretch goals. We'll see. It's Mafia, right? So Werewolf Mafia, take your pick. This is a play on that, so there you go. Next up, Lucia, the Swedish holiday for St. Lucia. This is a card game that you're going to be playing for 19 euros with free shipping. And the essential gameplay is 1 to 6 players. You're using cards to rearrange other cards on the board. And so you have these sets of cards that you're going to be trying to accumulate. You have these 3 down here, these kids, as well as the candles, and then the St. Lucia. And so if you get St. Lucia all the way over to one side, you have to get the kids all the way to the other side, and then you have to have all the candles lit as well. But certain action cards and certain other types of cards are going to be obviously preventing that. You have Starboys, Handmaidens, Tom-Toms, and Gingerbreads. Like gingerbreads, for example, blow out the candles. And so they're going to be placed down, and they're going to be doing those actions to prevent you from being able to accomplish your goals. It's a really short, simple, straightforward card game that has a little bit of light play to it. And so if you're looking for something like that, I mean, like, for example, it's going to allow you to shift things. It's going to allow you to shift this way. It's going to allow you to shift that way. You're going to flip over. You're going to blow out the candles. You're going to not have certain ones that can stand next to each other. So it's manipulation in that sense. Just something a little bit lighter and for a good price point, especially with free shipping. So take that for what it is, but it's definitely something to look see if you're in the line for something along these types. So Lucia, there you go. Now, let's go over here. Game found. Turczi Jr. promo pack. Turczi is about to have a kid, so he's doing a crowdfunding campaign, putting up a whole bunch of promos out for all the games that he's done stuff for in the past. And it's got, that's a bigger goal than, wow, 26,000 euro goal. I thought 12,500 here at the beginning was really good, but apparently that's a big thing. 20 euro promo pack though for all of these games. Yeah, that's it. I thought I'd just mention it because it's going over on GameFound right now, and you've probably heard of or maybe even own a couple of these games. So yeah, 20 euros, 12,000 bucks already. It's impressive. Okay, next up, Heart of Ice Deluxe Edition, a solo adventure game. And this is sort of peeving to me because you've got these 2 that are running currently, and you've got 2 running currently here, but then this one isn't launched again. This one is almost done, and this one is almost done, and this is the one that's just launched, and you've got the rest of them sort of relegated somewhere down here to the other stuff that's already in Pledge Manager sometimes, like Biergarten here, which we'll talk about in a second too. Again, should be up higher, but active is a very loose term. Pledge managers, I wish they would really separate that out. I don't want the Pledge Manager ones with the active campaigns. When I look at this page, it's very hard to tell which ones are active and, just at glance. And so I just really wish GameFound would do something about that. It's annoying. Anyway, Heart of Ice, the Deluxe Edition. So you're going to be traveling across this post-apocalyptic world, and you're going to be trying to outmaneuver the AI system that controls the weather. And you want to save humanity in doing so. Now, it's a little bit of a different vibe. I didn't actually talk about the other one that's operating on Kickstarter right now that's actually at the top of the popularity. And that's Koriko here, right here, at the top of the hotness on Kickstarter. Koriko, A Magical Year, a tarot-driven story game, because it's actually a solo RPG game when you actually click over it here and you dive a little bit in. Because originally I thought it was a card game based on tarot, but it's really an RPG more than anything else here. And so that's why you didn't see me talk about it. And this one, although this one appears to be the same, it has more of a Seventh Continent type of vibe, is this scratch off map that you're going to be essentially scratching off these numbers and going and reading from the book about what happens. You're going to be trying to decide where you want to go, what's going to happen. Here are the scratch maps that I said, and then seeing how you interact. You're going to have asymmetric characters that you're going to be choosing and playing with that are going to have powers and strengths and weaknesses. And then you're going to be having pages that look like this, where, okay, this is all narrative. And then if you have this code word, go here, otherwise turn to this. And then you scratch off a region, you get a number paragraph that then unlocks another region for exploration. So that's the gist of it. They give a little background. They talk a little bit more mechanically with these little standee guys of what you're going to be doing and how they're different. But it's a Polish game, and they have the Polish version here. And they say once they fund, they'll have enough to do the English one as well. So 50 euros, essentially, a couple of their older games, and shipping is going to be what it's going to be. So where are we at right now in terms of the actual funding? We are just funded, so English is in, so 20 days left. This is Heart of Ice Deluxe. Check it out. Next up, we have Temple of Horrors 2.0. This is the relaunch now that has already almost hit 400% funding of their 10,000 euro goal at 40,000. And this is not going to be a long campaign. This one actually launched last week on the day that this video dropped. And so I obviously couldn't cover it. So now I'm covering it here. And I believe, aren't these the guys that did the Pathfinder game? I'm totally blanking. No, I don't think so. Anyway, so this game is a dungeon crawl with a different dexterity-based combat system. And I'll tell you that right now, the action selection that goes along with the dexterity base is different than anything you've seen. And it's sort of a scenario-based campaign where you're going to have different objectives of what's going to be happening in this very modular-esque dungeon that's going to be sort of laying the tiles out as you go. And what you're going to be doing in this game is you're going to be taking a main action as well as then any number of free actions on your turn, trying to defeat enemies, trying to, achieve whatever that certain objective is within that dungeon. And so this action system that you have is you have these cubes that you're going to be pushing into colored areas. The colored areas are going to correspond to abilities or mana that you're going to be able to utilize to do more of your Euro-based action selection. But some people are not going to like that. Obviously yellow, dodge, these other two, damage. Well, obviously that's going to be a little different depending on the character and how do you like that, which is kind of weird because they actually say down below, they say, if you don't like this way that we're presenting to you as a novel, different way of doing things, don't worry, we actually have a backup way that's non-dexterity based, which is kind of weird to me, right? Like it's go with something you love. Don't let people variant it just because you're concerned about appealing to everybody, right? And what you're doing here is you're just moving and exploring, choosing where you want to go, unlocking the rooms and exploring what happens as you go creature by creature, Euro system based exploration and action selection. So they've got a PvP mode, which is really where there's just potentially a traitor in the group. And so you just have to figure out with a secret role who that is and how you want to go. 100 different adventures, that's a ton. I'd worry, like, how different are each of these adventures? I kind of like the variants that they talk about here with dual class heroes. Campaign, I don't really need it. It's going to have a solo. It's going to have the dice combat, like I mentioned. You can check out the rulebook here, which is relatively long, actually. It's 34 pages. And you can see here, you've got a little bit of what the main actions are, right? Moving, changing room tiles, searching the areas, secret passageways, attacking, powers, just all sorts of stuff. And they run through all of these individual actions that you can kind of see. And really what I want to know is, okay, how do you upgrade? How do you do things that are differently beyond just the flicking? Otherwise, is it just sort of a smash and grab? Because that's kind of what it appeals, although they're definitely going for more of the RPG-esque vibe with not only the rules, with some of the combat, just some of the description as well. So it's a long rulebook here. I would definitely say check it out because it's definitely got a few things going on that you're going to recognize and a few things that are going to be different. So gives you the layout here, gives you the standees, has some miniatures as well that you can utilize. I don't know. I don't know with this one. I could see it going either way. I mean, it's definitely less pricey than I thought it was going to be with this early bird, especially at 42.5 euros. And the other non-early bird is only, 2.5 euros more. So that's not a big deal. I love the fact that I'll give them kudos separating out the miniatures. Thank you. All ins here. All in though. Oof. Metal coins and all add-ons. What are the add-ons out of curiosity? I didn't see all the add-ons. So the miniatures, the walls, and another miniatures, and some sleeves with a little bit of promo. Okay. Check this one out because it's doing something a little bit modularly different, but I could see this easily being a hit or miss depending on how you feel about the combat and the dexterity based system. So it's definitely got some more dynamic though, and that makes it a little bit more stand out, and so I can see why it's getting some support. This is one of those where I just wonder, in the sea of dungeon crawls and the sea of campaign games, would it stand the test of time? Is it going to be yay or nay? And for me, with something like this, I mean, the price point's really good, but it's like a lot of these this week, probably from that standpoint, you know, hands-on, try before buy. So anyway, Temple of Horrors 2.0, there you go. Now we have Steeplechase, and I always cover Gavin Birnbaum's games because he hand makes these wooden games. And this is the 10th anniversary of this game, which is kind of like Longshot, the dice game, if you're familiar with that recently came out. You basically have tile tokens that tell you how far to move, and they made a tweak from the original game where the person in the lead, or the person that's, you know, going first, hands out all of the tokens to the other players. Well, in this case, everybody gets to pick their own secretly and put it face down in front of them, and then it tells you how far to move. But if you're the last person in line, you have the opportunity actually to swap right here with one of the other pool tokens, or with somebody else in front of you, and you can basically then just play it. And there's gonna be hurdles that are gonna get in your way, and you can only go so far, and then you can wager on the horses if they're outside of the no wager zone. You can play up to 3 different races for a full complete game, and that's it. Like I said, he hand makes these wooden board games. There are gonna be 3 different levels that you can see here. This one, and this one. So yeah, that's everything. A little bit more simple than his previous games. Definitely less dexterity based as well than a lot of his other ones. He actually says 2012, this is the first one he did without like a bouncing ball. So anyway, I always cover them. It's raising a bunch of money. Check it out if you want to. There you go. Next up, we have Rising Waters. Michigan, Central Michigan Press putting this one out. Represent Michigan. Anyway, so this is a cooperative game about sort of pandemic style 1927 Mississippi flood. And what you're doing here is you're basically trying to stop the flood from overtaking the land. And so you're going to be confronting not only the racism from the landowners, but also the power of nature. The problem I have is it seems like a cool concept in the pandemic style cooperative games, but there's no rule book. So it's a little bit hard to tell how the game flows. You're going to be having the ability to upgrade your player characters as you're going along on your individual player boards, as well as having community cards that you're going to have to discard in order to do so. Then you're going to be dealing with the landowner cards in order to basically represent job offers that are going to be able to help mitigate things, including working on the local levies and helping take refuge or dealing with threats or harassment or violence that's going to be potentially going up against you. Then essentially you're going to be taking your actions, moving your workers across the board, donating cards between players, as well as working on the levies and playing resistance cards that are going to help you further along. Resolving weather effects, and then the cleanup phase resolution. Obviously trying to keep the water level down and keep the losses to a minimum. That's it though. I mean, I wish there was a little bit more information on the page. It's, you know, $60. This is an indie game, small press company. It's going to be what it is, but it's got $9,600 already, which is really freaking impressive for a game that you've probably never heard of. And I just wish there was a little bit more information besides just the video here from Rolling Solitaire, or Beyond Solitaire there. So there you go. Put it on your radar, because that is what I do, Legion game style. So Familiar and Foes now, $18,000 of its $30,000 funding goal. This is a very cute, aesthetically pleasing cooperative game where you are one of 5 possible spell slinging familiars based on each elemental core, if you will, going up against a series of foes that you have to defeat in a cooperative sense, taking actions on your turn with either attacking as a melee, using an artifact, or casting a spell, but they're going to cost resources. You're going to be going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, trying to be, you know, the last one standing comparatively to the foes through 3 separate rounds, trying to rescue your wizards as you are familiars to wizards. So it's got kind of a very light style gameplay. You're going to be having things about, you know, being able to play cards or opportunities to bonus other people on their turn to combo. You're going to be flipping a coin to potentially make your attacks stronger. So things like that from a very light style of gameplay. And the only problem I have too with this page is here's all the components, here's the deluxeifications, and then they run through plushies and all the other stuff. And how do you actually play the game? Well, you don't actually get down to that until you get past all of the upgrades stuff. So there you go. I mean, this is what you're doing down here. Like I said, physical attack, artifact, casting spell, rolling a dice to see, again, if you're hitting, you're critical hitting, you're missing, or something else. So those are the mechanics you're dealing with. The aesthetic is cute, but are the mechanics going to keep you in? Special abilities, the flipping, the team attack, as I just mentioned, all of those things to go along with it. And then the foe gets their turn where you're rolling to see what they do to everybody there potentially as well. Several different foes that you can go up against, and that's pretty much the game as a nutshell. So it is going to cost you... Let's see what the price point is here. It's going to cost you $50 for the non-deluxe, and 2 copies going to be $98. The deluxe, though, is $150. That's insane. Resin figures. Okay, so take that for what you will. I'm a little surprised at the funding goal. It's a massive funding goal for a game like this. You know, $10,000 funding goal. I just wonder sometimes. I don't know these things, but there you go. Familiar and foes. Ripping through these heists in hyperspace. This is a competitive game now where you are going over, I think, what does it say? 3 rounds, but each has 5 rounds within it, something like that. And what you're going to be doing is you have these columns of cards that you're going to be sort of playing, I want to say more like if you're familiar with King Domino, right? King Domino, where you kind of go through the action cards and the encounters, and you're going to be flipping them over from potentially a face down situation to reveal what's there, to either, you know, get resources to fight an encounter or a foe, but also to hire crew that's going to help you with this heist in the first place. Standard edition, deluxe edition, a few reviews here. What are you actually doing though in the gameplay? And we talk about it down here. You have the higher up, and that's where the King Domino version goes. The higher up in the column you are, the sooner you're going to go and be able to move to the next round to get your choice of the one in the next round. You're going to be hiring mercenaries and spending those resources and getting basically renown is your sort of victory point treasure, if you will, to be the most at the end of 3 rounds, which 3 rounds is going through all 5 of these columns 3 times, essentially. So that's what you're doing. You're flipping over the cards, resolving them, and sort of, not really Euro style, but action resource management, if you will. That's it. There's a rule book here that you can check out what some of those more specific actions are. But like I said, it kind of is that in a nutshell. So it's got $2,000. It's almost 40% funded. There you go. Heists in hyperspace. Now we have a dexterity game, award-winning micro dexterity game. $1,400. You know, $1,400 is $1,400. You have ghosts, you have kids, you have candy. You're flicking your ghost trying to hit the kids. You're flicking the kids trying to hit the candy, but you have to keep your character upright by using these little special things that's going to be interacting with the actual flicking mechanism. That's it. It's $20 for this little cheap plastic game. You can get a add-on of a print and play of their previous game. That's everything that's on this page. It's a little bit of a almost Crash Octopus, if you will, only with candy and kids. And they say you can even actually use real candy instead of these plastic ones if you really want to. So just something light, just something a little bit family friendly. Cost you a cheap penny, so take it for what it is. Bonnie and Clyde, relaunch of Bonnie and Clyde. I love this. Funded in 120 hours. That's 5 days in case you're not keeping track there. But this is just barely funded over. And so this is an interesting romanticization of Bonnie and Clyde, however you pronounce it. And I don't know, it's just the theme does not do me, I'm not a big fan. But essentially this is a card playing game where you're going to be laying out cards trying to action resource management again, while still fighting off the police, essentially, because as you have your first victim, then the police come and they chase you across this little grid-based board. And when they catch up to you, you have a shootout. And if you defeat them, then they go back and they're injured. But the more victims you run into, the higher level of the police that you fight up against. And you're trying to go to where the actual end of the game allows you to go. You've got several different turns within the actual round that are divided up into the phases of morning, afternoon, and night. And that's going to depend on what you can do. A lot of the time, you're just going to be drawing a road card at the beginning, which is going to lead you somewhere. There's going to be several different things that you can do at these places. Go, stick up, stay, draw a second card, and then find your hideout at night, or having the police catch up to you and deal with the ramifications of that. You also need a car. It's going to be represented by cards that you're going to be having to take care of, because the body of the car or the engine of the car, between the gasoline and the body, you can break down. And so you either have to get new car via resources that you've gathered, or you have to hijack a car, which is going to be a whole nother different action that you have. You're going to be going until you get to the end. This is really a 1 to 2 player game. They say either way you can play it that way. And you go until basically somebody kills the main character. I don't know, 4 levels of difficulty. Theme doesn't appeal to me. They have the rules up here. They have a few videos as well that you can check out. It's funded, so take that for what you will. I've just never really liked or enjoyed the story of Bonnie and Clyde in the first place, so it doesn't do anything for me. But if you're looking for something different, give this one a look-see. We're going to talk about it. I mentioned it earlier, and I can't not talk about it now, but after looking at the page, I'm a little bit displeased. Biergarten, the 2nd edition, is a tile-laying game where you're trying to complete the most beautiful beer garden before Oktoberfest. 1 to 5 players, 25-minute game, in the lines of something like a King Domino-esque, but there's absolutely no information on the page. It says you're going to be completing not only with other players to create the most beautiful one, but racing against the clock, trying to get ready. There's a solo mode as well. Added element of time. If you want to buy 2 copies, it's going to save you $5. That's literally everything on the page, folks. Right there. I just went through everything. That's, you know, again, irritating. Like, if you want to get people to buy your project, why don't you have more information, Blue Wing Games? You need more information on, like, what are the actual actions? What is the rule book? Why is this better than the 1st edition? Why would I buy this right now? I mean, I don't need a bunch of fancy reviews that you've paid for or not paid for, but give me some actual information on the gameplay. Why should I get this over other tile laying games? More. That's why you're only a third of the way in, and that's why, you know, I would worry about funding right now, because without more information, that kind of puts me in an awkward spot. Or even link to the 1st edition. Link some stuff from the 1st edition, anything. So, Biergarten, tile laying, there you go. That's it. That's the roundup. More games in a video than any other place that you can find on the interwebs. That's all I got. I got to figure out what to do with the upcoming videos. You know, those are a lot of work. And do you guys like those? Do you guys like me covering everything? Do you want me to cover highlights, you know, like top 5 or, you know, something like that? A little bit of everything? I don't know. I'm just spitballing on some of this stuff this week, wanting some input, and putting it out there for you guys to think about and to know. So that's all I got. Otherwise, I need a couple reviews. I need to get some games reviewed out there. I'm still working on the True Bangs. I'm working on the Horizons of Spear and Island. I've got Nightfall from Red Raven. I just picked up a copy of the new Star Wars The Clone Wars. I've got a couple other things coming in. Yeah. I just got shipping notification for Fall of the Mountain King. So, just stuff like that. You know, just totally casual stuff. No big deal. No big deal. No big deal. There we go. What are you backing? Now, right? After this week, right? Like, things like Terraforming Mars, the dice game, and Daybreak, both of which I'm backing right now. Those look really good. Those are sounding really appealing right now, aren't they? Price-wise. Yeah, right? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, that's all I got. Stay classy. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you want to see more of and stuff and blah, 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 and the news, what you want to do with that. So, thanks for watching. Peace out. Have a great weekend.